Beneath the rolling countryside of upstate New York lies a cave system that looks deceptively simple on paper. No massive chambers, no legendary depth records, no reputation for danger. Clarksville Cave had been explored for decades, quietly, methodically, without incident. But caves do not need to be deep to be deadly. They only need one moment of miscalculation. In the winter of 1983, 4 young explorers entered Clarksville Cave for what they believed would be a controlled, familiar outing. They would reach the far chamber, clear a small underwater blockage, and leave before midnight. Instead, one of them would never come back out. This is the story of how a narrow tunnel, cold water, and a single impulsive decision turned an ordinary cave trip into a fatal trap. Viewer discretion is advised. In early 1983, Clarksville Cave was well known among university outdoor clubs in New York. It wasn't extreme, it wasn't technical, but it demanded patience, fitness, and respect. 4 friends, Daniel Mercer, Evan Brooks, Thomas Hale, and Lucas Reed, were members of a university outing club based in Troy, New York. All were students, all were active outdoorsmen, hiking, climbing, caving. This was how they spent their weekends. They had visited Clarksville Cave before, always stopping at the same endpoint, a large chamber known informally as the lake room. At the far end of that chamber lay a shallow pool of water. Beneath the surface was the entrance to a submerged tunnel, a sump, leading to another section of cave called Pawleys Avenue. The sump had partially collapsed over time, clogged with mud, gravel, and fallen stone. Clearing it would reopen access to hundreds of feet of unexplored passage. That night's goal was simple, not to pass through the sump, not to cave dive, just to clear debris from the entrance, or so they believed. They entered Clarksville Cave shortly after 7 p.m., carrying light packs and minimal diving gear. Reaching the lake room required nearly 1,000 feet of crawling, climbing, and squeezing. Some passages were open enough to stand, others forced them onto their bellies. One section, nicknamed the chest compressor, was barely wider than a human torso. To pass through, you had to exhale fully and slide forward while the rock pressed against your ribs. Another stretch required crawling nearly 100 yards with less than 18 inches of clearance. Heads flat, faces inches from stone, no room to turn around. Once you entered, the only option was forward. Psychologically, these passages take a toll. The body may fit, but the mind resists. Still, the group moved steadily, joking occasionally, discussing future trips. To them, this was familiar territory. After roughly 45 minutes, they reached the lake room. The pool in the lake room was calm and dark, fed by meltwater and rain. The temperature hovered around 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Only 3 of the 4 planned to enter the water. Daniel and Evan were newly certified open water scuba divers. Thomas was still completing his certification. Lucas did not dive at all. None of them had cave diving experience. They didn't consider this cave diving. The pool was only about 10 feet deep with open air directly above. They planned to work in short intervals, 5 minutes at a time, moving rocks and scraping mud away from the tunnel entrance. Each diver carried a pony bottle, a small auxiliary air tank, typically used as emergency backup. Not designed for prolonged work, not designed for confined spaces, but they believed it would be enough. Daniel went first. The moment he touched the bottom, visibility vanished. Every movement kicked up a fine silt that turned the water opaque. Within seconds, he could barely see his own hands. From that point on, everything was done by feel. One by one, the 3 divers rotated, lifting stones, scooping mud, dragging debris back into the open pool. The tunnel entrance slowly took shape, roughly 3 feet wide but only 16 inches high. After nearly an hour, the blockage was mostly cleared. They were cold, tired, and still faced a long crawl back to the surface. By then, Daniel's air supply was nearly exhausted. Evan had enough to surface safely, but not enough for another dive. Thomas, however, still had air remaining. He suggested one final quick descent, just to look inside the tunnel and make sure nothing obvious remained. 5 minutes, no more. The others agreed. Thomas descended alone. At first he felt nothing but smooth rock and loose sediment. Then, clarity. Beyond the entrance, the water cleared. His light revealed open space ahead. The tunnel widened, just slightly. It was inviting. Without fully processing the risk, Thomas pulled himself forward. The tunnel flattened into a narrow tube, 7 feet long, twisting slightly before opening again. But his air tank snagged. He tried to adjust, but his arms were extended forward. The bottle was strapped to his thigh. He couldn't reach it. Turning around was impossible. Backing out should have been simple. It wasn't. Moving forward into tight spaces allows your shoulders to lead. Backing out blind forces your hips and knees to find the path, without sight, without leverage. Thomas twisted, pushed, pulled, nothing moved. His breathing accelerated. Bubbles streamed upward. Above him, his friends had no idea anything was wrong. Minutes passed. No bubbles surfaced. Daniel re-entered the water with what little air he had left, searching blindly in the murk. He surfaced empty-handed. Then Evan descended. As he drifted upward, his hand brushed something impossible. Feet. Thomas's legs protruded from the tunnel. Evan pulled with everything he had. Nothing moved. Panic erupted. Lucas ran for help. Daniel and Evan dove repeatedly, twisting and pulling Thomas's legs, trying to free him. At one point, they pushed him farther inside, hoping a wider section lay ahead. It didn't help. Air ran out. Time ran out. Thomas stopped moving. Before leaving the water, Evan made one last descent. He pressed his spare air tank into the tunnel, wedging it as close to Thomas as he could. If there was any chance at all, it was all he could do. Rescue teams arrived hours later. Dozens of divers attempted to free Thomas. He was immovable. Over the next 3 days, water was pumped from the lake room. Rock was chipped away. The tunnel entrance was widened inch by inch. Only then could they see what had trapped him. Only then could they bring him out. Thomas Hale was 23 years old. The surviving friends would later say they never believed the risk was real. They weren't reckless, they weren't careless, they were inexperienced, and caves do not forgive that. Clarksville Cave did not change that night. But the way people understood it did, because in caves, danger is not loud. It does not announce itself. Sometimes, it waits silently just beyond the light.